If you're a developer trying to start a side hustle, like I know a lot of you out there are trying to do, this is the podcast episode to watch. So I brought on two founders of Little Planets, and they're still kind of fleshing out the idea and trying to build it up. And they're going to talk about their journey and, the good, the bad of it and the mistakes they made. And hopefully, some of their wisdom can rub off on you and encourage you to start your own side hustle and, maybe some things to avoid. But I really appreciate both of you coming on. James, Danny, it's really nice to have you on. Let's go ahead and do like quick intros so people kind of get a feel for who you are. We'll start with you, James.
Sure. My name is James Ebentier. Working with Danny for like 3 to 4 years now. Little about my background. I got started in security when I was fresh out of college, did security consulting, and that has been kind of my passion thread throughout my entire career. Moved into web dev shortly after that with Ruby on Rails, Python, Django, and now venturing into entrepreneurship and starting my own thing.
Fun. I love entrepreneurship. It's nice to meet other people that are interested in it. How about you, Danny?
Yeah, my name is Danny Peck. I'm a sort of career developer. I've been sort of at it since 2001 when I got out of school for computer science, and I've just been sort of a contributor ever since. Number of different roles in the industry as a professional developer, but then a number of just sort of side projects as well. Uh, yeah, and I kind of mix programming with my other passion, which is making music. So just kind of two ends of the creative spectrum, I think. So yeah, I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. All right. Thanks for sharing. Well, let's dive into it. So, this can come from either of you, both of you, up to you. But what is Little Planets?
Yeah, so it all clicked sort of like during a late night stream with a friend of mine, and he's a Twitch streamer, and they were just talking about their community and just sort of these like amazing people who like come together through gaming, share incredible moments, and then just sort of drift apart. And that kind of hit me because I've experienced that as well. So, um, this I think we can all relate where you've had like, as from a gaming perspective, like you've had this sort of experience with people, and there's just this incredible energy among the group, and everyone's excited, wanting to stay connected. But then that comes that sort of awkward dance of like, are you on Discord? What's your Twitter? Oh, you use Signal. Like, before you know it, the moment's gone, and that like potential connection sort of fades away. So that's essentially where like Little Planets was born. We wanted to create something that could capture these moments of connection without all the friction. So no accounts, no apps to download, no commitment. You just a space that appears exactly when you need it, and then disappears when you don't. So it's just this basically an idea of these small like self-contained worlds. Like each planet is that sort of spot for you to create your planet. You share like a link, and then everyone can just suddenly be right there sharing, chatting, posting photos, and being like in the moment. And then there's this sort of 7 day, they're ephemeral by nature. So after 7 days, kind of like a festival like energy where everyone knows this is sort of like a special fleeting thing. Um, After 7 days, by default, the planet self-destructs and everyone kind of goes on their way. There's options to make planets permanent if you'd like, through like either a one-time unlock to make like rename a planet, or like a $1 a month to sort of create like a permanent planet if there's a space you want to keep around indefinitely. But yeah, that's the general idea.
Cool. I, you know what comes to mind? So immediately I think about like what could go wrong whenever I think of an idea. Um, that seems like a moderation nightmare, right? Because a lot of people lock people into signups and stuff like that. And what happens when they post just porn or, whatever content you don't want on there. I know it's still probably early stages, but have you guys thought about how to deal with that?
Yeah, it's, that's a thought. We have the ability to report content. The fact that it is an ephemeral planet where you don't need accounts. And because planets self-destruct after 7 days, then if there is inappropriate content, it doesn't like stick around. So the goal is just to make it sort of super lightweight, drama-free, and a simple way for friends to connect without like all the usual like social media baggage. And so and interestingly, just by looking at some of the metrics from the planets being created, like we're not seeing any of that, at least yet. I don't know if you take it to scale, if this thing was hitting like millions of planets created, I'm sure like some of that content would start to emerge. But I think we've taken the approach of like, let's see the usage by the people and we will adjust accordingly, like, if and when that problem comes along.
Cool. Um, okay. I'm kind of interested in the engagement. You dove into that a little bit. What kind of engagement are you seeing? How many people are signing up and using your application?
Yeah, we've had some initial bursts, like incredible early bursts of activity, especially when we had a couple of posts on Reddit that really got some traction, and I think on one day we had like 1,500 planets in like a 24-hour period. A lot of people created a planet and sort of like posted like a test message trying to figure out like kick the tires, how does this thing work? And there was like we noticed it tapered off a lot. A lot of people would create a planet, post a message, and then like, they would bounce. And then a subsection of those would actually like share with friends, and you'd see like some communities forming in there and stuff like that. So yeah, so I feel like that sort of behavior informs like some things that we can do from a user experience perspective to like guide people more about like coming in and like, here's how you use the site, sort of like a real quick interactive tour type of thing. Um, you know, Maybe a little bit more about how to like share with other people and get them involved because I think a lot of people don't understand exactly what it is despite like messaging and stuff on the homepage and they click to create a planet and the planet appears and we kind of leaned into this sort of sci-fi thing, so it's like some people were like, is this a game, like what did I just do, like so that was kind
That
of
was
an
one of my
unintended.
favorite Reddit comments was like, I clicked on this expecting to play a game and it wasn't. What is this?
Yeah, exactly. So we're still learning those lessons as we go. But I think there's something there that people are interested in, this idea of like ephemeral social network, like micro community with like one click. So we're still exploring like themes of how to keep people engaged.
Okay. I'm just taking a look at your website again.
Yeah.
That's yeah, that's always fun to figure out how people are going to stay engaged. But that's pretty incredible to get 1,500 planets with one Reddit post and within 24 hours.
Yeah,
Good
and
job with
we
that.
ran into quite a number of problems because of that. We were still getting things set up as far as like, transactional email and things of that nature. So like immediately people were signing up and they were getting all of these like notifications from our system about like, thanks for signing up and creating a planet and this, that, and the other. And we did not have our domain set up properly with the SPF and like the DKIM and the DMARC stuff. So we were very quickly like blacklisted from all of Gmail. And it sent us down this like horrible like 3 week rabbit hole trying to figure out how to like redeem ourselves with Google and like how to, you know, improve our reputation with that because like they thought it was like a spam thing and it wasn't. So like, that sent us down a whole rabbit hole of things. We ended up having to like literally register another domain as our mailer and do some like redirects between the two. It was just amateur hour, honestly. You know what I mean? So that was my bad.
Yeah, I feel like everyone that creates an app goes through the email spam thing. It's a pain in the butt.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Rite of passage, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. So let's dive into some of the technical issues that you guys face. I'm also curious about your stack and why you chose it, and kind of like, would you stick with it if you had to redo it? But kind of just talk about some of your choices with your tech.
Yeah, I think I was the one that dictated the stack more than anything. Danny was just like, "Yeah, I'll play ball with whatever whatever you're doing." So we did Ruby on Rails because that's something that I'm super familiar with. And I also wanted to play around with some of the new features on in Ruby on Rails around like Hotwire and how it's moving kind of away from like single page app land and trying to move back to traditional like HTML, CSS served over the wire, um, and doing more efficient server side loading and rendering. So this was a really fun application to try and use those tools at a kind of a wider scale of that social media type application where you want like really instantaneous feedback of like made a post, somebody posted, and I'm getting notified in the application immediately kind of environment. So we're doing that. And then we started out being deployed onto render, um, and saw the monthly costs going up as those 1,000+ planets started getting created, and so quickly switched over to just a $5 a month box that's a static box, and we just deploy everything on that, and it has enough hardware to run our database, our web server, and everything, and we have a little bit more control there, um, which was that was a fun migration to make, and it like dropped our costs while still being able to serve just as fast to everybody that was trying out the app, which was a lot of fun.
Yeah, you switched us to something like is it called Cabal? Is that the tool?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's the new DHH Rails addendum Cabal or Kamal,
Oh, that's right, Kamal. Yeah,
Kamal
with a K.
for yeah, for deploying, KAMAL. Um, and so it's leveraging Docker for containerizing the environment, and then essentially instead of using like Kubernetes to distribute across a network of like your own private network of instances, it just hot deploys directly onto the Docker daemon on whatever nodes you have SSH access to, which is really nice.
What database are you using?
Postgres.
Postgres.
So
Okay.
we're going very, very like run of the mill, basic out of the box Rails stack, which has been a um, bit of a blessing. I think it's been nice kind of to get back to just like basic core framework, moving away from adding a bunch of like bolts and addendums to make kind of this like perfect environment, and just getting back to bare bones and like out of the box environments.
I like it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
I
there's
kind of.
absolutely, sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to throw to that end on the front end. We're absolutely doing nothing fancy whatsoever as far as technology goes. It's straight up Rails views with Tailwind, and that really helped us to iterate extremely quickly on the front end side of things. It's actually pretty light front end, so there's really not a ton to it, like honestly. And yeah, so Tailwind helped us to iterate quickly. There's absolutely zero React, which is kind of weird for me to say because that's usually what I immediately reach for on the front end, but we just didn't see that as a need, at least not yet.
I think
Okay.
the one main change that you made was upgrading from Webpack to Vite. Like
That's correct.
that's the main thing that we changed for like out of the box framework.
Yeah.
Okay. What was the reason for that?
Yeah, I was looking at Vite. I wanted to use it in a project, a side project, because I hadn't really had a ton of familiarity with it. Um, there wasn't a huge passion like sort of behind that aside from just wanting to like get familiar with it, and this seemed like a good project to start getting familiar with it. So yeah, we switched from Webpack to Vite at the very beginning, and that's the either the best time or the worst time to do an untested technology because, as you know, some of those decisions can haunt you for many weeks and months to come. But fortunately, that was a good one. That didn't hasn't given us any issues. So Vite's been great.
Yeah. And I think side projects are a really good opportunity to try stuff that you've always wanted to try. Um, and I like for my project, I brought in Nest. It's a pretty heavy backend Node.js framework, and it's probably delayed my app by months from launching, to be honest. And I think it's one of the best decisions I made. I wanted to learn something new, and I'm tired of kind of the crazy Node.js Express ecosystem, and I want to try something new. I think that's a great opportunity in side projects, and not enough developers will branch out like that. They always go with what they're comfortable with. So awesome.
Yeah, and if it slows down the launch, but like the learning experience is super invaluable.
Mhm.
Um, yeah.
Absolutely.
Sometimes taking the longer path pays off, especially when you're building something you really care about.
Yes, very much so. Um, so what was your second biggest issue? You mentioned like the email thing, which is a pain in the butt. Did you deal with any other technical issues or smooth sailing?
I found it really difficult and James seemed to navigate this like a champ, but we sort of evolved this platform from completely anonymous to having like planet level usernames to having like global usernames that spanned all planets. And I found this really difficult to wrap my head around the the architecture of from a database perspective, as well as just managing those different scenarios on the front end. James might have a different take on it, but I found that to be challenging to wrestle with personally myself. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, I think
cool.
I think that was an interesting problem to get through. Yeah, originally, so I mentioned that security is like a big passion thread of mine across my career, and so I came into this because we're entering this like new age of like data privacy and data protection and like people wanting to protect their identities online more and more while also being able to be authentic. And so one of the things that snapped with me when Danny was explaining this, like Little Planets, was initially like the idea of it being completely anonymous. So like people can come in and not have to share their identity with their guild mates from video games in order to, because when you have like a Discord account that is for everything, you are instantly kind of like connecting your identity to your guild mates and might not necessarily want to be sharing that, right? So we started with that anonymity at first, but then very quickly found out like there's a lot of limitations to that because how do you identify that somebody wrote the post that you're reading? How do you actually serve authenticity on the platform? How do you allow people to edit their posts or react and unreact to posts? You have to kind of like try and juggle IPs, and IPs are very finicky when you start thinking about VPN usage and people traveling between different homes and different internet connections. And so that's not reliable for authenticity. So then we had to figure out a way to add that layer of authenticity on top, which came to, like Danny was saying, like planetary level users to even global users on the platform.
Hmm. Um, okay, so it wasn't just about making themselves anonymous to the people that they were talking to, but to the platform itself. That was your original goal.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, interesting. Um, yeah, I mean, I even find decentralized technology fascinating in what it tries to solve too, but it has its cons versus kind of like a centralized storage of or centralized identification or whatever you want to call it. But Little Planets has that feel where it's very spontaneous and this is immediately why I thought like people are going to be posting like illegal stuff or porn because like this can be like if I were corrupt, I would use a platform like this to post random stuff that's going to get destroyed in 7 days. That's fantastic, right? And that's something you got to be aware of. Like, people might use it for that use case. But you know, the focus on privacy and anonymity, I think it's very I think it's awesome. And I think a lot of platforms should consider, like, what information do we truly need about you? What is a bare minimum possible? So I like that you guys are trying to solve that in this app. What about marketing it? How has that gone? And like, what strategies have you tried? What do you plan on trying? What hasn't worked? Let's talk about that.
Yeah, marketing has been a little challenging. I think the core demographic, um, has been tough to narrow in on. Well, obviously, like tech savvy, like younger audiences, like people who are, um, you know, keen to the web and used to, early adopting new platforms and things like that. So, but at the same time, like it's a little bit difficult to reach those people through traditional marketing and things like that. Like we tried some like target advertising, um, didn't really like yield any results for us. And, it's a niche platform and you cast a wide net. And like if you're scrolling Twitter and you see a link, with like some planets and it says little planets, create your own micro community. I mean, like what is that? How do you like get the people who actually have this need to like get eyes on your platform? So like we're still just trying to figure out the best way to reach that audience. So it's a lot of trying to get involved in conversations like on Reddit and like other social platforms like that. But I think we all know that Reddit is they have a pretty hard line when it comes to any sort of self-promotion. Like if you cough and say the name of your platform, like you might get like permabanned from the subreddit you're on. So Reddit's been extremely challenging. So you have to sort of engage with people on a very like non-marketing level, almost as if like, getting involved with communities and finding people who are talking about this problem and like trying to like get involved with that conversation. But that still feels very like, manual acquisition, like, but maybe that is the strategy for a lot of these small startups is manually acquiring your first 1,000 users, like literally one at a time. I've heard, the Y Combinator guy, can't remember Don, you probably remember his name, talking about
Nope,
the
I always
manual,
forget it.
yeah, the manual acquisition. So yeah, very unhelpful anecdote for everyone listening. But I do think that paid marketing was not very helpful for this. Word of mouth has been good, but it's like I only know so many people, so um, I've had a lot of people sign up and try it out, and they're like, "Oh, this is cool." I don't really need it for me, but I will pass it along. And so I think it's one of those things where it's just like it needs to sort of permeate itself into like the internet subconscious as like a thing that exists, and then it can be a thing that people reach for naturally, if it were to reach a level of like ubiquity where people are like, oh, let's cluster up. We'll use little planets. We'll create a little space to have this conversation, and then move on. But yeah, still haven't really like narrowed in on what that is specifically yet. Strategy.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I would say marketing is the learning edge for both of us on this project, and has been uh, the most difficult part for sure. Like technical problems we know how to solve, and it's pretty easy to navigate them. We're seasoned, we're veterans at this point in that regard. But the marketing, the how do you tell a story to your users? How do you get it in front of the right people at the right time? Um, it's a grind. Like that's the part that's the grind.
Yeah,
Yeah.
agreed.
I,
And I I deal with the same thing as like a music producer as well, like love the creative process, but then when it comes time, and it's the same with this, there's so many parallels when it comes time to like actually let people know that it's out there, it's just the fun stops and it becomes work at that point. Like, I think we're all happy to like wake up early and start working first thing on a project that we're passionate by, but like and I tip my hat to people who like love the marketing angle of it, and that's just not me. So it's hard to get excited about and stick with something that you find not personally like fun or, you know, it's just not fun for us because we're developers, right? So yeah, that's the
Yeah.
struggle.
It's kind of like CSS. You hate it until you get comfortable with it. Then it becomes fun.
Maybe that's it.
Um,
Yeah.
I do. I do feel like marketing is that thing. And well, you know what? Maybe I'm kind of just speaking for myself, but I do feel like I've talked to other people that have gained this excitement for it. But when you start getting good with it, you start seeing results, you start learning, you start iterating, you try stuff, it fails, you try stuff again, it starts working a little bit. You get those aha moments, just like you would learn to code, and just like anything else. So you can have fun with it eventually, and I do have trust that you guys will. But that's the hard thing. A lot of developers, we know how to code, but getting it out there and getting it in front of people and telling the story and marketing and branding, it's all new. It's really new to us. And so to me, that's really exciting, but it can be frustrating when you want to see this project flourish, and the only thing stopping it is like the thing that you really have no idea what to do with, right? I got a question for you guys though. So, like, not saying you need to write a blog, but I've talked to Danny about this, but I think like writing a blog is a fantastic way for organic search. It's really good for a lot of different applications, and a lot of developers that are just launching applications, they don't think about like content creation as a marketing strategy. It doesn't have to be a blog, right? It could be posting to other social platforms with different mediums, different types of content. But if you were to write a blog, what kind of content would you create for Little Planets? Is it educational? And don't just lean on like how to use Little Planets. Like that's a tutorial. That's not a blog. That's not going to gain you much traffic. But like if you had to think about like what does Little Planets represent? Like who is this for? And what kind of content can I create for these types of people when I identify my audience? Like what would that content be? Would it be educational content about something? Maybe it is about privacy. But like what would that content be? Would it be entertainment? Would it be like maybe you target a gaming audience and there's some kind of like entertainment value in covering like gaming news or something like that. I don't know. But like what would that content be for you guys?
Yeah, I think, the whole idea of Little Planets came from sort of gaming communities and just how fleeting those connections can be. So I feel like writing about that experience and the problems we're trying to solve feels natural. And we could share stories about how friendships like inspired the platform, like discussing the challenges of keeping like communities together across different social networks. Um, we could highlight how some early users are using the planets in creative ways. I've always found that like you're really onto something when people use your platform in ways that you didn't expect. I feel like the early days of Twitter was like such a great example for that when they really started having people. It was a flexible platform. They could just kind of bend it and use it like in completely like avant-garde ways. I'd love to see usage like that. So yeah, I think if it's authentic to our mission, you're right. I think that would really help with organic discovery for sure.
Yeah, and like as you were describing that, my mind was going through this kind of like aha moment of why didn't we think about that? Of like a a permanent little planet that is our blog is kind of like a quintessential usage of our platform too. Like we write a blog post, we put it on the feed. That's the little planet, and other people can subscribe to it and follow it and get notified through being attached and like active on our planet, right? So like the little planet's planet kind of a thing.
I love that. Yeah, it's a great way to dog food our own like software as well. And 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 that gives me other ideas too about, and we've talked about because right now planets aren't discoverable at all. Like they're islands unto themselves. They're not searchable via Google. So like we've started to talk about a permissions system at the planet level where creators can decide who they want to be able to join their planets and stuff like that. So I think this idea of like having discoverability of planets, if you think about the universe metaphor, like that kind of works where show me little planets that are frequently visited and are about technology or about like, XYZ, any given topic. I guess that cracks the door for who knows what sort of people are going to start using it, but and moderation becomes more of a deal. But yeah, I love that idea of using little planets as a blog. That just makes all sort of sense.
Yeah, that's an interesting concept. It does feel like that moves away from your original idea of kind of something that's temporal. Is that the word? Temporal. I'll just say temporarily. Um, if you create or if you use a planet as a space that can gain organic traffic as a blog, is that like you're probably going to think of potentially like meta tags and how it's going to rank in the search engine, and you start thinking about like how this is a blog now, right? And that does kind of change fundamentally what it is. And so do you have this special planet for yourselves where this is searchable, where you can kind of showcase what it can do, and does that communicate effectively or accurately what this is meant to be? But that's a hard decision because now you're starting to think about like you're starting to change what this is, and that is going to change your target audience. But that I think that target audience and like really figuring that out and going into those communities, like you said you were, Danny, but figuring out that target audience is going to be that's the key to figuring out how to make this like really, really work.
Yeah, and I feel like the target audience would inform our decisions on the direction of the
Yeah.
platform, like because we can't be too like firm on what the platform is. Like it has to be malleable, and if we need to pivot it in some minor way to like better suit the needs of the users, then that's definitely what we should do. That's like the best kind of feedback we can get is like, I really wish the little planets did, this thing, and immediately we can start implementing meaningful changes, and it kind of snowballs. Like you get those users that are kind of following you, and then, they're finding value and they're telling friends, and then one thing leads to another, and that's how you build that community in your product, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a
Yeah,
tricky thing to figure out.
the idea is definitely like no idea is going to be void of evolution. And so like that's one of the things that I've learned most is like the idea you start with isn't always the one that even makes it to your V1 that gets in front of an actual audience. Um, because you're going to take in feedback, you're going to evolve it, you're going to adapt it, you're going to try different things with it and see what catches. And the the core of Little Planets, I believe, like right now is communities, right? And so there's a lot of different directions you can go in for the simple idea of communities and still keeping that ephemeral nature that we have currently, right? And so it's all about just like you said, like finding that target audience, actually connecting with them and getting that feedback so that we can let the users decide what the direction of the idea is.
Yeah. Um, yeah, honestly, if you guys had a blog where you talked about how this experience went, I could tell you I would personally follow that blog. But um, sometimes you could even get ideas from an audience that wouldn't use your application, but that's fascinated with you growing an app to begin with and you diving into entrepreneurship. That's at least what I've found too. And I've gotten some good ideas from Twitch Sprout with just developers who are just coming in to watch me code. And they're like, hey, what about this idea? And I have a list of really good stats to like record that are going to be relevant for streamers. And Yeah, but it's tough. I know this journey is really tough to solidify. So what advice would you give to people that want to try to push out their side project and they want to try to grow it, and they want to flush it out, they want to build it, they want to, or whatever you think they need to do to try to make this successful, based off of like what you guys have tried with your personal ventures? What would you share? What advice would you give?
Yeah, I would say you should always start with an idea that you're really interested in and passionate about, because that is going to help you push through the times when you don't, when you get, you know, when you just get discouraged or tired and you need to push through. Like if you just have that core idea that you're really excited about, I think that will keep you going. But yeah, I'd say start small. Like be ready to move fast. Find Try to build community, a core community as early as possible, and also don't like get stuck in the development cycle in a cave. To your point, Don, you told me this once. Like, don't isolate in a cave trying to figure out what people want the product to be. Like, get it out there quickly and engage that core community, and just try to iterate in public, I guess, would probably be the best advice. And doing that, engaging in public, whether it's on Blue Sky or something like that, it can help just keep you motivated because you're getting instant feedback from other people who are also going through the same challenges. And I think that can be good inspiration to keep pushing forward.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. And something that I would add on top is especially around trying to get feedback from like the public or direct contacts that you're like in contact with that are users of your prototype or anything like that. Um, as engineers, myself included, and especially, I always try to like, I'm always inclined to ask very like specific, narrow questions to try and validate my specific idea. But what I've found is a lot more valuable is asking more open-ended questions and letting the the user talk more rather than just trying to validate my like what I think is right. Ask them and let them tell the full story of what they need or what they see. And that has always been a lot more valuable in the feedback.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that, especially in the beginning, where your identity of what your app isn't flushed out that much. And yeah, I think that's really fun. I'm even thinking about it for my own app, and like you guys are just reminding me, I need to get this in front of people a little bit sooner because I've been in the dev work for a while now, months, and I think it's about time I pushed that out. Okay, cool. Just like the other app, Danny Golden Record, I'm going to be paying attention to Little Planets as well and seeing how that journey goes. But yeah, I really appreciate you guys coming on and sharing this. So we'll actually just wrap it up there. And I definitely want to, I probably want to do more episodes like this, but if anyone has kind of built a side project and gained users or gained revenue, I'd love to hear it in the comments below. How did that, like what worked for you? And, at what point did you finally figure out what to do to change, to pivot? What did you like? Feel free to join me in the live streams and share those kind of stories. But I'm definitely on this journey right now, and I want to hear other people doing this. So, but yeah, we'll go ahead and wrap it up with that. James, if people want to reach out to you and anything else, if you wanted to say anything else that we didn't cover, where could people reach you?
Yeah, so across the internet, I'm at my first initial last name, like everywhere on socials. So just J Ebentier everywhere. Um, And so that's super easy, which is really nice. So Twitter is at Ebentier, LinkedIn, Ebentier. I have my own site that's my like online CV and some of the cool stuff that I'm working on, which is just jamesebentier.com. That one's slightly different. Um, and other than that, just like my top advice is just go out and do it. Just build, try stuff, fail, succeed. Just get out there and try it.
Yeah. How about you, Danny?
Yeah, I'd say the easiest way is just go to dannypeck.com, and that's kind of an entry point. You can find me online and other projects like music and otherwise there. Yep.
All right, cool. Well, the goal of this episode is to get people to just kind of build that side project, because I know most developers have thought about it and they just don't execute. And, you know, James, like you said, just get out there and build it. And it's also one thing I've noticed, and I just want to share this. When I worked for Danny at Analyte Health for my first dev job. And one thing I noticed is if I had a 40-hour week at that job and I did nothing on the side, no dev work, no content creation, anything like that, I eventually got burned out. And it wasn't until I added hours in my personal time building what I wanted to build that burnout went away. And it was a crazy thing I never would have discovered. But I think a lot of, if I didn't try it, but I think a lot of developers might even find, because I think a lot of us get into this building something that we are interested in building, that we enjoy, and with our own conventions and our own stack, and we get to explore, and that kind of gets snuffed out in a professional dev job, right? And you can get burned out, and there's a lot of politics at work you got to deal with, and a lot of different departments and stakeholders, and that can kind of just crush our original enjoyment, at least just a little bit, of why we got into coding in the first place. So I even think pushing out a side project is just a healthy thing for developers to do. So even if it's for that reason, even if your app fails, maybe it'll alleviate a lot of that burnout that you're feeling at work too. But that's just my personal opinion. So anyways, thank you so much, James and Danny, for coming on and sharing this.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us. Yeah.
Pleasure.